Alrighty, guys, it is Dragon Ball Nation here today. And joined with me, talking about Xenoverse 2, of course. We've been doing a lot of these lately, and yes, they're going to stay, but it's not going to be the only thing I do on my channel. I have...
Hey guys, what's up? I'm glad to be on Dragon Ball Nation's channel.
Yes, and today we're going to be talking about an interesting topic that I kind of covered in the past before, a very long time ago. Kind of talking about who I thought maybe the next big villain in Xenoverse 2 would be. And I still stand by this, but I wanted to wait until this video to talk about it again. I want to talk about the potential of Dragon Ball Heroes characters being in this game. Dragon Ball Heroes is also worked on by Dimps, who developed this game, as along with Budokai, Burst Limit, Infinite World, yada yada yada. And I think there's a big potential for like those characters to be in this game, but it's hard because we're not sure how big they're going with the character roster in this game or the story. I brought Kwame in so we can have multiple people talk about this, but Quinn, as a lot of people know you by, do you think it's likely that we could see characters from Heroes like Super Saiyan 3 Vegito, Super Saiyan 3 Trunks even? That could work with the Time Patroller Trunks, I feel like. And other Super Saiyan 3 versions, as well as maybe the Majin Janemba or something like that, but there's some Dragon Ball Hero characters that are pretty popular. Do you think they can come in? Mostly it's Super Saiyan 3 variations. What do you think of that? I have a special one to talk about later.
Don't think it's really likely, Josh, and I have one reason why. Actually, more like two reasons why.
Please tell.
The first reason is, if you look at Dragon Ball Heroes, it's pretty much a fun game where like you have like your characters and like you're pretty much it's basically fan fiction in a lot of ways. You know, you're going through these fights with the characters. So that one element alone is telling me that it's a very different game from Xenoverse. And then in the second point I wanted to point out, Dragon Ball Xenoverse itself, from what we've seen, is very strict to kind of staying to the known story of Dragon Ball. Yes, Mira and Toa were original characters, but if you look back on what happened in a lot of the events on Namek and the Saiyan Saga, they were trying to be very consistent with what actually happened in that story. And I just don't think there's room for it. I mean, it's possible, but I just don't see there having any room to really input all of these, characters from all these different fictional points of the Dragon Ball series. So that's honestly my take.
No, I completely understand. I still think it's possible. Maybe not as, how about this? Not as a story character, but in just the versus mode or parallel quest, because maybe a bad but a good example as well, because it is a character that's in the Dragon Ball story. But Vegito was in the game, but he was not a part of the story at all, actually. So what do you think of that? Do you think maybe in the character selection menu we could see it, rather than in the story mode? I think that's where they could experiment.
That could be it, but I mean, honestly, if there's one...
Super Saiyan Bardock as well was in there.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, Super Saiyan Bardock is something too. And they have done this with Raging Blast, I believe, with Super Saiyan 3 Broly. But I think that the thing with Bardock is that he did technically turn into a Super Saiyan in that episode.
Don't talk about that.
Yeah, in that episode of Bardock Special. I know the canonicity about that whole thing is up for debate.
Don't use the C word.
I'm not going to get into a whole
we've talked
debate
about
on
this
that.
before
But
in multiple videos.
What I'm saying is there's at least an existing version of Super Saiyan Bardock out there. With all these other characters, I just think it will be a little too much of a stretch. Just a little too much of a stretch.
No, I see what you mean. Okay, how about this one? I do have a final thing to say, because this is a Dragon Ball Hero character as well, and it pertains to the Xenoverse story. You may not be aware, you may, I'm not sure. I haven't talked to you about this off the air before. There is a character in Dragon Ball Heroes that was revealed about a few months ago, and it's Super Mira. Do you know about this?
Yes.
Super Saiyan-ish Mira. Do you think that is a potential villain?
Yes. Mira, yes, because, he is kind of mixed with all of those DNA elements.
Right.
So I could see Mira getting like a transformation. I could definitely see that because it kind of could be true, but just not the others.
The ending to Xenoverse 1, if you haven't beaten that game or played it, then you're living on a rock at this point. The ending to that game showed, after Mira's death, there was a cell or a big chunk of him left alive, and it was still talking, and that kind of alludes that Mira is going to be a major role in this game, I feel like. And Super Mira, again, Dimps makes Xenoverse, as well as Dragon Ball Heroes, as many other games too. So it's very likely that Super Mira could be a villain. Maybe not the main villain, but maybe another major villain I think it's something to talk about, and I think it's something that was interesting because it's the same developer. Maybe they're going to share their ideas. I thought it was fun to talk about. Kwame, is there anything else you want to say before you take this video out for the fans?
Well, honestly, I mean, I guess my final take would be I think that it's very hard to give any confirmations, but if I were to lean towards
we don't know anything about the game yet. That's the thing.
Yeah,
that's what people need to understand. We're speculating and we're having a fun discussion. People could have to take it with a grain of salt because we have no idea.
I think that it's just more unlikely than likely. I mean, anything's possible. But if there is, I just think it's just a little too far to give them any transformations. Out of the main characters we know, I think Trunks might be the only one who might get Super Saiyan 2 or 3.
I agree, because he has a major
possible.
part of the story, and it's different Trunks.
Right.
I see what you mean. Yeah, they don't want to mess with the story. They made a very good point when people asked about GT characters and movie characters in the first Xenoverse. They made a very strong point that they wanted to stick to the original story. Then obviously later adding GT characters anyways. That's, I see where you come from. They might want to still stick to that story. I just want to say that these are the same guys that made Super Saiyan 3 Teen Trunks. That's all I gotta say. Or Teen, sorry. These are the same guys that made Super Saiyan 3 Teen Gohan, which is a crazy form. But that's all I gotta say. You want to take us out of this video, Kwame?
Yeah, so please remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. And remember, as I always said, have a great day, guys. And as Josh always says, I'll catch you later.